Welcome to AQMD On the Air. I'm your host, Lior Alpern. The Southern California Association of Governments, commonly referred to as SCAG, is a metropolitan planning organization for Southern California. SCAG is mandated by federal and state law to develop regional plans for transportation, growth management, housing development, air quality, and other issues of regional significance. SCAG is governed by an 83-member regional council, and its region encompasses 190 cities, 6 counties serving 19 million residents, making it the largest of nearly 700 councils of governments in the United States. Our guest today is the Executive Director of the Southern California Association of Governments and is responsible for the implementation of policies of the Regional Council and directing the agency's day-to-day operations. He has over 25 years of public and private sector experience in transportation planning in the Southern California region. Holding advanced degrees in engineering and urban planning, he has previously worked for the South Coast Air Quality Management District and the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Mr. Hasan Ikhrata, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
For our viewers who are not so familiar with the Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG as you're known, could you give us an overview of the role of the agency in developing plans for the region and especially in addressing some of the critical challenges facing our region? And of course, we're interested specifically in air pollution.
Sure. Southern California Association of Government, or SCAG as it's known, is mainly a planning organization. Was created in 1960 by the United States Congress to make sure that planning for regions don't stop at county boundaries or city boundaries. So SCAG, as it's known now, encompasses 6 counties, 190 cities, about 19 million people. And its main charge is to put together a regional transportation plan 20 years into the future. That plan is supposed to outline all the transportation investments, all the housing and land use investments, and the coordination between those investments, making sure that the plan contains enough money in it to fund all these investments. Most importantly, to make sure that the plan complies with the Clean Air Act requirement set forth in the Clean Air Act. Therefore, the plan is an important document, the Regional Transportation Plan, or the RTP as it referred to, that pretty much outline the investments for the next 20 years in such a big region.
Certainly one of the critical air quality challenges we face here in Southern California is from all the pollution from transportation. And for transportation in Southern California, we have to be talking about goods movement, with approximately 40% of the nation's goods being transported through the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. So could you explain to us a bit about the impact of goods movement and how SCAG is preparing plans for the future of Southern California that will mitigate the air pollution caused from goods movement?
This is a great question. First of all, let me just give credit to the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which I am honored to say that I worked for early 1990s for a few years. I think the Air Quality Management District have done a great job so far in making sure that our air is cleaner and hopefully will continue to be clean. We at SCAG are partnering with South Coast Air Quality Management District to make sure that our planning is coordinated in such a way that we not only clean the air, but maintain the air quality that our residents deserve. Goods movement, as you mentioned, is a very critical component of Southern California life. 43% of all containers coming to the U.S. actually are shipped through our 2 ports, Los Angeles and Long Beach. 1 in 12 jobs in the region is created related to goods movement. So the question is, with all the benefits of goods movement, there is obviously challenges. One of them is air quality, pollution, diesel pollution that's known to cause asthma and premature death. And we are working with AQMD and other partners to make sure that doesn't happen. So part of our plan will address meeting an air quality standards that's set by Environmental Protection Agency and by AQMD. Second, we work with our partners like the ports and the industry, the railroads and others, to make sure they use technology to clean up the air even further. Have to admit that it has been challenging in the last few years with the economy we have, but I think everybody we talk to is committed to making sure that while we want to build the infrastructure to continue moving the goods, to benefits not only Southern California but California and the nation, we realize that with that infrastructure building has to come the mitigation needed to do that. And to give credit to the ports, they are doing the clean truck programs. I think SCAG is putting an initiative to make sure that the railroads and the trucking industry do their part. We're proposing to build truck lanes with only totally clean technology on them. So we're pretty much making sure that the future is brighter in terms of cleaning up the air.
Well, I'd like to pick up on that project as an example and other projects that are part of your plan in terms of mitigating transportation's impact on the air pollution in the region. And while your plans have a lot of projects that were being proposed, at the end of the day we have to turn to the federal government and get as much funding as we can to build these projects. And there's also a reauthorization bill to be considered by Congress for 6 years worth of transportation funding. So could you give our audience an overview of the efforts to secure the federal funds and especially how AQMD, SCAG, and our regional partners are working together in order to make sure that the South Coast region gets an adequate share of funds?
Well, obviously, funding is a critical component to moving forward the priorities for the region and mitigating the impacts for the communities. No mistake about it, funding these days are very scarce, both at the state and federal level, but we're working with our partners to make sure that we get our fair share. Let me just say that for our region, and it's a unique region in the country, actually most of our funding is generated locally. 70% of the funding, transportation funding, is generated through local sales tax. So that's a good news. The bad news is the other 30% comes from the federal and state government, and that amount of funding has been reduced year after year after year. Our hope is through our work with the AQMD and other partners that Washington recognize the importance of goods movement and building infrastructure for goods movement to the rest of the nation, and actually do give Southern California an additional funding for freight. We would hope in the next transportation bill a specific language will be put forth for goods movement because, again, we ship 43% to the rest of the nation.
I'd like to switch topics a bit to talk about some of the efforts that are going on here in California with the landmark greenhouse gas laws that are enacted, AB 32 a few years ago, and then recently we had Senate Bill 375, which sets forth for each region in the state to put together regional plans that will indicate how we're going to be reducing our greenhouse gas emissions through transportation, land use, transit-oriented development. SCAG is at a critical role for this region on SB 375, and I wonder if you could share with our audience a bit about your role and what we can look forward to.
SB 375 is clearly a bill that's part of AB 32 that says, and it relates only to personal vehicles, personal small size and medium sized vehicles. SCAG is one of the 18 MPOs that are charged with implementing SB 375. In our case, we're in charge of implementing for the 6-county region and for the 190 cities. I always said SB 375, as far as I'm concerned, is really pretty much confirm the market trend that's been happening in the region in the last 5 to 10 years, and it's going to happen in the next 20. A couple of things. One is, as many know, that the demographic shift is huge in our region. We're going to have older population and we're going to have much younger population. And both of those demographics will not have the lifestyle that we had in the last 20 years. So you're going to see a huge reduction in demand for single family house in big lots that's going out there. The thrust of SB 375 is to make sure land use and transportation is coordinated. It's easier said than done, but I think SB 375 pretty much said it's no longer a choice and we have to do it. And we are working with AQMD and other partners to make sure that when we move forward in implementing SB 375, we do it through incentive-based approaches, because actually many of our cities want to do that. Many of the developers are already doing what SB 375 is calling for because the market is going that way. We're looking forward to that role. We thank AQMD for their help. We thank ARB for their help. It's going to be challenging. It's a first time around. We're going to put a plan to meet SB 375. Is it 2012? We're in the process of putting that plan together. Obviously, we're going to learn a lot from the first time we do it. But this is a process that's going to take a while. And as Mayor Leverage, who sits in the AQMD board, said, this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So we're looking forward to moving forward in the implementation of SB 375.
One quick follow-up on SB 375. One of the terms that we talk a lot about are co-benefits in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, which is the main focus, but co-benefits for toxic air emission reductions. Could you explain that a bit?
Sure. Well, actually, probably the co-benefits are more critical than the direct greenhouse gas reduction for SB 375. The co-benefits are we going to sustain ourselves into the future financially? Is the energy going to be available at a reasonable cost? Is water resources going to be there for us? Is the infrastructure needed for the kind of lifestyle that we create in Southern California is going to be available? So when we reduce greenhouse gas emission, obviously the co-benefits are huge. We're going to have healthier society. We're going to have people who walk more, bicycle more, leave the cars in the garages. And I would argue that with that comes a much more livable Southern California. And you're going to hear a lot about the co-benefits as opposed to just simply the greenhouse reduction as we move forward.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about another law or regulation which is foreseen in the near future, which is from the Environmental Protection Agency. They're likely to have new standards for ozone and particulates, which will likely play a key role in the regional transportation plan that you mentioned will be put together over the next year or two. Could you explain a bit about how you foresee these new standards, should they be enacted, influencing the regional transportation plan in 2012?
Oh, it's definitely going to influence it a great deal. One is, I believe that we're going to have to meet stricter emission budgets. I believe that to do that, we're going to pretty much to rely on non-gasoline powered vehicles, period. When you say that, it scares people a bit because, people would say the technology is not there yet. There is financial challenges, and there is some truth to that. But when you do a plan and the horizon year is 2035 and the requirement for meeting these emissions in 2035, I believe we're a creative nation, and if we have to, we will do it. I think we should do it, which means that we're going to get rid of all combustion to meet these new requirements if they are enacted. I don't think that's far-fetched. I think you will see this at one point enacted, and I believe the technology is going to be there to do what we needed to do to meet these requirements.
Before we close, I'd like to tap into your expertise. You've worked here at AQMD, you've worked at the LA County MTA, and now you're the executive officer of the region's planning agency, SCAG. How can AQMD and our regional partners work closer together in the next few years in order to meet these critical air pollution and public health challenges? That's
a great question. And let me just say that actually AQMD is doing their part in working together with local cities and counties and partners like SCAG to do what we needed to do. What I will say in addition to that, what needs to be happen in a very consistent manner is to coordinate all these different laws, SB 375, AB 32, the Environmental Protection Agency's rule and regulation, to make sure that these efforts are coordinated so there is no duplications. That's one. Number two, I think AQMD and other SCAG and others need to do a better job of informing the public about these different plans and how they lead into a better quality of life for Southern California. I mean, we understand the planning, but does the normal Joe out there understand what it takes to actually breathe a better air? And I think the more understanding with the public, the better it is for us, the better chances for us to get more funding from Washington and Sacramento to do what we needed to do. So I think AQMD need to continue doing what they're doing, partnering with SCAG and others, working with local government and doing a better job of outreach to the communities.
Mr. Ikhrata, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on our show. I want to thank you and especially your entire staff as a partner to the AQMD as we work together to develop plans that will help us clean the air that we breathe.
Glad to be with you, Leo. Thank you.
And that's our show. Thank you for watching AQMD on the Air. Visit cleanairconnections.org to find out how you can help us clean the air that we breathe.
Let's work together.